Hello, my friends. It's Nick, the ASMR nerd, and welcome to another episode of Relaxing Reviews. It's been a long time since I've done one of these, and I'm really glad to be doing them again. Honestly, it's kind of felt like something was missing for the last while, and I've actually got a lot of very interesting reviews lined up for you guys over the next little while, many of which are, perhaps unsurprisingly, mechanical keyboards. And today we have one such item in. It's a fairly modest keyboard as these things go. Today we're looking at the RK68 keyboard from Royal Kludge. Royal Kludge. And if that name sounds familiar to you perhaps, it could be because I actually reviewed one of their keyboards before, quite a long while back, their G87 board, which is a 10 keyless wireless RGB keyboard. And I came away from that review quite impressed with the insane amount of features and value that Royal Kludge was able to pack into that board at their very reasonable budget price point. And since that time, Royal Kludge has actually developed a bit of a reputation for delivering a lot of value at a very low price point, and is so quite appealing to entry-level mechanical keyboard enthusiasts or people just looking for a fairly basic board. Their RK61 in particular, which is a compact 60% board, has proven to be very popular amongst budget-oriented buyers. The RK68 that we're taking a look at here today is kind of an evolution of the RK61, or an alternative to that board. It uses the less common 65% layout, so it's like a compact 60% board, but it features an additional column of keys over on the right-hand side, and that allows Royal Kludge to pack in dedicated arrow keys, as well as a handful of nav cluster keys, like a dedicated delete, home, and page up, page down, these kinds of things. And so I'm very curious to see if Royal Kludge is going to be able to do it again, to be able to offer that compelling package that's feature-rich at a very low price point. The RK68, for its part, has wired and wireless functionality. It's got backlighting. It's got, of course, fully mechanical switches, all this kind of stuff. And it retails for a very modest $60 US. So, is it a great budget buy? Is it going to be worth it at that price point? That's what we're going to find out here today. And of course, Royal Kludge has been kind enough to send over a board for us to take a look at and poke and inspect. So let's get on with that. And here we have the Royal Kludge RK68 in box. And you can see it's a step up, actually, from the boxes that Royal Kludge had previously, at least when I reviewed their 10 keyless board, a couple of years back now. That was just a plain cardboard box. This one, at least, has some color, some branding, some graphic design going on. We have the branding up here, RK, Royal Kludge, and then again over here, Royal Kludge keyboard. Over here we have a sort of stencil-y looking image of, well, it could be this board, or it could really be their RK61 as well, because we don't get to see the right-hand side of the board. And that actually makes me wonder if maybe they use the identical box for each board. That's quite possible. You notice that there's no specific branding for the RK68 anywhere on here. So that's probably intentional. Anyway, the black and orange design is appealing and bold. It definitely catches the attention, and it's got a glossy, shiny finish. Coming around this side, let's turn this around here. Coming around this side, we've got some basic certifications made in China. Here we have a sticker that identifies the board, RK68 dual mode brown switch. So that's with the Gatoron mode, or Gatoron brown switches. And the dual mode refers to the wired and wireless operation. There's some more information underneath there. It'll be saying that it's an RGB backlight, but it's hidden under this here barcode. Anyway, made in China, and what looks to be a manufacturing date. Looks like December 15th, 2020. Fair enough. On each end, just some branding. Royal Kludge. Okay, so on the back they do actually show the complete board, including that 65% arrangement on the right side. So evidently this box is specific to the RK68. A couple of QR codes for their website and the manual. Manufacturer information, address, and all that stuff, which seems to be common on Chinese boards. They put the address on there. I'm not sure why, but you don't often see that on North American manufactured goods. Well, I guess you see the city usually, but not necessarily the full address. On the front flap here, RK Game Keyboard, rkgaming.com. Actually, now that I think about it, on the front here, this is, for sure, the RK61, because if you look, we've got the 1.25U size modifiers over here, matching the size over on the left, but this 65% layout actually has 1U modifiers over here. So, yeah, that's funny. It's funny that they bothered to put the 65% version on the back, which reflects what's inside, but couldn't be bothered to do so on the front. Anyway, no matter. Overall, the packaging is pretty bare bones, but certainly sufficient. Gets the point across. Information that you need is there, and let's be real, this isn't retail packaging anyway, right? Now this is for sale almost exclusively online, so okay, at least as far as I know. Maybe they do sell at retail somewhere, but I think the vast majority of their sales must be online. Let's open up the box now. In the spirit of full disclosure, I must let you know this is not my first time opening this box. I actually opened this box on stream, on my Twitch stream, a few weeks back, because I had been using the same keyboard for a long time, and I have a fewer channel points reward on the Twitch stream that Nick types. It makes me, compels me to type something, so you can redeem channel points, and I'll type a little bit on the keyboard for those sweet sounds. Anyway, I felt like I needed to mix things up a little bit. I'd been using the same keyboard for a long time, so point being, I opened this box up. We opened it up live on stream, and we took a look at the keyboard inside, and I've been using this board ever since then. So I actually know exactly what's in this box, and I've used it extensively for the last few weeks, and so there are no real surprises for me, but I've tried to put everything back in exactly as I found it, and yeah, the keyboard, I tried to clean it up a little bit, not that it was super gross or anything, but if you see any cosmetic blemishes or dust or anything like that on there, it's not from the factory. It's just because I've had it out. It's not pristine. It's not pristine. So, but anyway, twitch.tv/the ASMR Nerd. By the way, if you'd like to join us over there, the link's down in the video description. An amazing community of super kind, friendly folks. We'd love to see you there. It'd be great to have you there. Okay, I'm plugging my Twitch. Let's actually open this up now. Okay, so inside, the keyboard is situated inside its plastic bag here. It is protected on all four sides by at least a little bit of cardboard buffer, although it's not nearly as, robust or safe a packaging as something that packs in it with some foam, some low-density foam, but it appears to have done the trick anyway. This board was not damaged on arrival. So let's lift out the board. Inside, a pretty bare bones package to match the exterior. We've got a keyboard user manual. It has the layout there. Gives the information. Layout 68 key, backlight LED, material ABS switch, mechanical switch, and mode USB/Bluetooth. System support for Windows XP, Vista 7, 8, 10, iOS, macOS, Linux, and Android. So it's got wide support for mobile OSs as well because, it is Bluetooth, so you can use it that way. Thank you for choosing RK products. Please read the guide, etc. Some keyboard shortcuts here because it is a 65% board, so of course you're not going to have all of your buttons on there, not all of your keys in hardware, but it seems that we have a pretty well covered secondary function layer, and I can tell you from experience using this thing that I have not been missing any keys, so that's good. Backlight adjustment, Bluetooth connection. Oh, this is something I didn't know. It actually does have a macro key recording. So you can do that in hardware. That's good to know. That's great, actually. Cool. You can swap between Windows and Mac OS modes. And that's that. Okay. Straightforward. In here we've got... I haven't actually pulled these parts out yet because I didn't have any reason to do so. We've got some switches. And a switch puller. Is this thing hot swap? Oh, I somehow didn't realize that. Maybe it is. Okay, that's cool. I must have missed that memo. It doesn't say anywhere. USB cable. And a keycap puller. Let's get this box out of the way. That's everything. That's all there is in there. Move that aside. And we will, of course, get to the keyboard in a second, but let's just take a quick peek at the peripherals. The pack-ins. I guess they're not really peripherals, are they? We have a white AC coded USB Type A cable to Type C cable, so that's nice. It's USB Type C. And it's secured with like a hook and loop Velcro style fastener cable wrap, so that's nice. Length seems adequate, probably around 3 feet, maybe more, maybe 4. I guess 3 would be pretty short. It's probably around 2 meters, just judging by looking at it. No branding or anything special on here, no plastic molding with logos or anything. Just a generic white USB cable, that's okay. We have another generic unbranded item here, just a keycap puller. The wire variety though, which I like to see. That's nice. It's nicer on your keycaps, easier on your keycaps. Less likely to scratch them or scuff them. So that's good. And then we've got this little baggie with what appears to be 4 Gatoron Brown replacement switches and a switch puller, which leads me to believe this must be hot swap. So these are Royal Kludge RK Browns. I don't know why I thought this was Gatoron. I'm confused. Okay, well, we're going to have to look at the switches on the board. I really thought this thing came back in Gatoron switches, but this one is clearly branded RK. I don't know if you can see it there. Yeah, right there. RK. Interesting. Very interesting. Are they all? They are. So, I mean, chances are these are some OEM switch that Royal Kludge just puts their own branding on, just stamps their branding on. They're all just 3-pin plate mount switches, and they're all browns. They feel pretty good. They feel like a Gatoron brown, honestly. Okay. And then a pretty basic switch puller, but look at the job done, honestly. With these little indentations, it's kind of easier to use than some others I've seen. So, all right, so this has left us with some questions, so let's pull the board out of here and take a look at that. Okay, so here's the board itself, and as you can see, we've got the 65% layout comprising 68 keys in this case. Standard layout on the left-hand side right up to here. Then things get a little weird. Down in the bottom right corner here, our function keys, our modifier keys are 1U as opposed to the 1.25s, like I was mentioning earlier on the left. We have dedicated arrow keys. We have a shortened right shift, which allows us to fit in those dedicated arrow keys. And then we have this whole extra column on the far right side, a 60% board, 60% would cut off right there. So we have one extra column, which gives us some extra functionality in the form of a dedicated tilde key up here, a dedicated delete key, page up, page down, and then the right arrow. And of course, there's secondary functions on all those keys as well. In terms of the design of the case, we've got a very simple, classic design here. We've got built-in incline tilt here of probably about 5 degrees. We've got this sort of cutout look here And then around the bottom edges, we've got these sort of chamfered edges, I guess you'd call them. Around the back, we've got our USB Type-C connector cut out. And that's about it. This is a high-ish profile case, I suppose. The edges of the case come up to the bottoms of the keycaps. So it's not low profile, but it's not super high profile. It's kind of medium profile, maybe you'd call it. The plastic itself, basic ABS, pretty smooth, not super textured. We do have the Royal Kludge branding around the front here in black. That looks nice with the white. There's no other branding visible around the edges. The plastic is decently thick. You can see there it's probably, I don't know, 4 millimeters, 3 to 4 millimeters or something. So that feels good. It doesn't have too much flex when you squeeze it this way. No flex from the sides. Around the back, we've got not a lot going on, honestly. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 anti-slip rubberized feet with a little bit of dust on them because this was sitting on my desk mat for a while. Really nothing else going on the back here except for a sticker with some operating parameters and certifications, a little bit of branding and such, and an on-off switch right here. So that's for the wireless Bluetooth mode. It's slightly recessed there, so you're not going to accidentally flip it while moving it around on a table. And then something, a little plastic cutout here, but you can't really access that, so not really important for us. As you will note, we have no flip-up feet, so you get one typing angle with this board and one alone. That is that, roughly 5 degree or so typing angle there. And that's pretty much it. So let's take a closer look at these keycaps. The keycaps on here are double shot ABS plastic, which, while not a particularly premium feeling material, will last a long time. ABS has a tendency to shine up over time with finger oils and friction, but because they are double shot, which means they're made of 2 fused pieces of plastic, the legends will never wear. The primary legends are shine through, so you'll get that RGB light coming through. The secondary legends, which are these ones lower on the caps, are simply pad printed, so they may eventually wear off and they will not light up when the backlight's on. In terms of the chosen font on the legends here, I think it looks fine. It's not like super gamery and angular or anything, so it'd be just as equally at home on a gamer's desk as on a professional's desk. I don't think it looks bad. Also, the double shot manufacturing appears to be fairly mature. I don't see any stenciling, which is often evident in older, more primitive double shot manufacturing. Like the O, for example, is fully closed, although when we light it up, we might see that there is some unevenness to the way the light comes through that legend. We'll have to see. We'll get to that shortly. I think the centering and everything looks okay. What I will say is that there's some inconsistency in the thickness of these legends. Like, for example, let's look over here. The escape, the legend for the escape key looks pretty thick, relatively bold, whereas tab looks a fair bit thinner. The lettering is thinner. So, and I noticed some more inconsistency like that, like the back key, quite thick and bold again. The enter, somewhat finer. And shift looks smaller yet again. So, not perfect, but, you know, for a budget board, we certainly don't expect perfection. Let's just pull one of the keycaps off with, we'll use the included keycap puller, why not? Put it to good use. So you can just tell from the sound, you can hear that, right? It's got a very like high-pitched sound to it when you're putting your fingers on it, scratching it, touching it. So that betrays the thickness of these keycaps, which is to say not very thick. We turn it around, you can see they are quite thin indeed. And if we squeeze, they flex pretty bad. This is not a good kind of flex. This is not good flexing. This is bad flexing. These are quite thin. That almost sounded like it was breaking there. They're pretty chintzy. But they are double shot. You can see the translucent piece is molded into the opaque outer coating. They're pretty smooth. They're like very lightly textured. I'll see if I can get the light to catch it there for you. But I prefer a little more texture on my keycaps personally. And there's some mold marks around the bottom edge, but not visible on any of the sides. So overall, these are totally acceptable. They're going to last you, which is fine. They don't feel great to type on. They don't look great to type on necessarily. They look fine. Certainly acceptable for a budget board. But that thinness does confer a cheaper, sort of chintzier typing feel. And that is unfortunate because it betrays the budget nature of the board. Okay, last thing, no, not the last thing, but one other thing we should check here is the switch situation. The switchuation. Are these hot swap? Maybe. Let me just grab the where did I put it? Switch puller somewhere over here. Okay, once again, we'll use the Royal Kludge included puller. And we'll try and pull this switch out. See what happens. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, I don't know. But the inclusion of this puller certainly implies that it ought to work. Huh. Well, I'll be darned. It does appear that this is a hot swap board. Yeah, no, it totally is. So if we look in there, we can see the SMD LED on the top there. I know it's a little dark for you. There you go. But in there, you can see two little sockets. One for each pin, and then one for the big post in the middle there. The PCB itself is actually a really nice kind of navy color. That's rather pretty. It's not your janky green or whatnot. Okay, well that's actually an added bonus. Now, the switches here, the switches are, if you look, gatorons. Can you see that? Hopefully you can see that there, gatoron. And these are actually different, yet again, from the ones they include, because the ones that they included are, they have these black lower housings and the clear uppers. The tooling, or the molding, I guess, is a little different on these each as well. They're not quite identical, I don't think. You can see the stems are actually slightly different color. This one's a little warmer brown, this one's a little darker and cooler. Fascinating. Also, the Gatoron is a bit lighter and smoother, truth be told. Here, I'll let you hear up close. That's the Gatoron. That's the RK. We'll do one in each ear. Gatoron, left ear. RK, right ear. They're pretty close, but the RK does seem a little bit stiffer. A little bit scratchier. Weird. Okay, but in theory we should just be able to take this RK switch and just pop it in here. Boom, just like so. What do you know? It's hot swap, you guys. Okay, well, let's take that out. And put that over here. We'll put our Gatoron back in. So it looks like it does ship with Gatoron switches. It's just the extras, for whatever reason, are RK switches. Now, let's see if I can get this Gatoron switch back in. Now it doesn't want to go in. The RK switch went in just fine. Without complaint. There we go. Okay. Cap goes back on. So, you might have noticed, you might have heard a little bit of pinging. Let's listen again. Let's hear. Just lift this up. Oh yeah, those are very pingy in the middle. Listen. Pinging is from, vibration of the metallic components of the board on the inside. That F key in particular. D, not so bad. F, very pingy. But it's relatively dampened when it's on a surface like this. Still audible, but not as bad. Stabilizers. Let's talk stabilizers. I know that this board is not lubed in any way. If you listen, scratchy and rattly. Scratchy and rattly all around. But we'll take off one of these caps just to check. I can't remember if I've actually looked. I'm just assuming based on the feel, and the sound. Okay, so we've got these white Jerry style stabilizers in there. Clip-ins, by the looks of them. And those are bone dry. There's not a speck of lube in there. Now, you could spray lube yourself, or even just get a little, cotton swab or something small and apply some lubricant by hand. That would go a long way, I bet. If you really wanted to go the whole way, you could, in fact, pull this whole board apart. Because of the hot-swappable nature of it, right? So, but yeah, pull it right apart, lube the stabs properly, Band-Aid mod. You could do that. But the included stabilizers feel pretty cheap and definitely are not lubed. You could replace them if you wanted to, if you really wanted to go that way. last thing we'll check here, let's give it the flex test. We got any deck flex here? Yeah, so we've got some flex. You can see if we some definite flex there. I don't want to go any harder because I do feel like it might just come apart. But that's not entirely fair. It actually feels relatively solid, especially for the price of this board. And no doubt a large portion of that solidity is due to the fact that it's wireless. There's a battery in there that confers some weight, some density, right? So, okay, well, so yeah, it seems like it's a little bit hollow sounding, but it's not too bad. Not too bad. All right, friends, we've sort of given it the 360. We've looked at it pretty thoroughly. It's time to check out the backlighting, the RGB, and then the wireless functionality as well. So let's get to that. And here we have the RK68 plugged in and illuminated. Now, the first thing that I noticed when I plugged it in is that this is not an RGB keyboard. I thought it was, and so I may have said something to that effect earlier in the video, but no, it's got a monochrome backlight, which is pretty close to white. Royal Kludge describes it as blue, but maybe like an ice blue. It's very bright, definitely verging on a cool white. Anyway, this color that you see here is what you're stuck with. So now Royal Kludge does sell a RGB version of this board, and it's only a few dollars more, at least where I was able to find it in stock. So if that's more your speed, then you can go that route. But it is a bit disappointing that this particular board does not come with the fun rainbow colors and the RGB. Nevertheless, it does come with a handful of lighting options. So let's just go through them here. We hold down function and we press backslash here for those. So we've got a breathing, like so. We've got just kind of waves, vertical waves, rotating, kind of a raindrops effect, ripples from the outside or the inside out. Maybe this is more of a raindrops effect. The other one's more of a twinkling stars, I guess. Whatever you call this. These are all effects that we've seen before on other similar boards. Yeah, this one where you press buttons and they illuminate. And I think that's that. I think we're back to our fixed color here, our fixed light. Another thing you can do is adjust the backlight brightness, and there's about a bajillion different steps. We hold down function and we press down. We can cycle through. Okay, maybe a bajillion's a bit of an overestimate, but we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Have we topped out yet? There, we just topped out. So there's like at least a dozen steps. So you can really dial in that brightness the way you like it. Also, for any of those animated effects, you can hold down function and press left or right to change the speed. So speed it up or slow it down. So that's, some very basic lighting functionality. Your mileage may vary with the fun effects. I prefer to just keep it pretty reserved most of the time, and it's a bummer that there's no backlight, but there's no RGB backlight, but I will live. Another interesting function of this board is its built-in macro recording capabilities. That was mentioned in the manual, and it turns out that, yeah, we can actually record macros in hardware without software, although there is software for this board as well, which we will be looking at shortly. But if you want to record macros in hardware, the way you go about it is you, first of all, have to switch it to macro mode. This is a little weird. They've got office mode, they've got game mode, and game mode has the macros enabled. So we are in office mode to start with. We hold down function, we press tab. Keyboard flashes, we're now in game mode. In game mode, the Z, X, and C buttons cease to function as Z, X, and C. They actually function as macro keys. And the way we record a macro is we press function, we hold down function, and then press and hold one of Z, X, or C. After a few seconds, well, I'll show you here, the board will flash there, and then caps lock and the Win key will flash like that. This means we're in macro recording mode, and while we're doing this, anything that we press will be recorded to the macro. I haven't tested the limits of its memory, but presumably you can do a lot of keystrokes, probably as many as you would want. I tested it and I got, I don't know, like a dozen or something like that in my macro, but can probably do more. When you're done recording your macro, you hold function and hold Z again. It takes a few seconds, but there you go, it flashes. Macro has now been recorded. And then all you got to do is tap Z or Z if you're Canadian like me, and it'll play back that macro. This is kind of a weird solution because it means that you don't have access to the Z, X, or C, letters when you're in game mode. But that's the solution that they've come up with anyway. We hold down function, press tab. We're now back in office mode. Everything works as normal. We don't have access to our hardware macros anymore. Odd solution, but hey, there it is. Anyway, if you do want to record macros and you don't like software, it is an option. What else we got going on here? On the secondary function layer, we do have some other keys here. We've got print screen over here under the tilde key. We've got insert under delete, all kinds of stuff. Scroll lock under page down, home and end under the brackets over here. Basically, all our functionality is covered. There's nothing that I found to be lacking or missing. All our nav cluster keys are here, which is great. And of course, the F row is up here under the numbers, so that's good. The final thing that I'm going to show you here before we get to the software is Bluetooth functionality. It's kind of neat. This board actually can swap between 5 different Bluetooth devices under Q, W, E, R, and T. Very straightforward. You hold down function and then hold down the corresponding key. That will put it into pairing mode for that slot, basically. You pair it with your device, and then you can switch between them by just holding function and just tapping your corresponding slot here. That's only accessible, of course, when we are unplugged, and I will do that just to show you. If we unplug here, and then we flip on the switch on the back, which is somewhere. I'm just trying to feel. There we go. There we are. And so if we go function and tap Q, we are now in our first Bluetooth slot, and that is paired to my PC. I've tested this out a fair bit with Bluetooth. It seems to connect pretty much instantaneously. It swaps quite happily between my Windows 10 PC and my Android phone without any issues. I didn't notice any particularly bad Bluetooth latency, but there always will be some. If you want the best response times and the lowest latency, you will want to plug it in and use the USB cable, of course. But functionally, the Bluetooth seems fine. The range seems fine. It functions all throughout my office here, and the battery life seems fine. It's got, I think, a 1500 milliamp hour battery, which is not huge. And if you have the backlight blasting at full power like this, You're probably going to get, I don't know, what, 8-9 hours or something out of it maybe. It does have an automatic light off there when it hasn't been pressed for a little while. That is only when it's not plugged in. But I was able to use it, happily in Bluetooth mode with the backlight on pretty much all day long for work without ever running out of battery. Just plug it in at the end of the day. You'll be fine. So let's just flip it off again here. Back into wired mode. We'll plug it in. Backlight will come back on. Oh, you saw there briefly that red light. That just indicates that it's charging. And so I suspect if we were to switch it like so. Oh no, now we're in Bluetooth mode, I guess. Back to wired mode. It's funny, you only really see that red light while it's starting like that. Because then once you've got it plugged in again, then you can't see the red light anymore. It's like drowned out. What if we turn the backlight all the way off? If we can see that, there we go. So when the backlight's off, you can see that red charging light. So that is that. Okay. I think that's all the basic functionality we covered. Backlight, secondary function layers, macro recording or layer macro recording, and Bluetooth swapping. And that all seems to work pretty okay. Next up, we're going to take a look at the software. This keyboard does come with software. It is available for download from the product page on Royal Kludge's website. If you happen to have found this video and are looking for the software because you own this board, just click through on the link down in the video description that takes you to RK's product page, and there's a software tab there where you can download it. Okay, so let's take a look at the software. And here we have the Royal Kludge Gaming Force Z keyboard software. And to Royal Kludge's credit, it was easy to download. It was readily available, which is a cut above many other budget Chinese keyboard manufacturers that I've had to try and download software from before, where it's like a wild goose chase digging through their Chinese language site or something. Not the case here. Readily downloadable from their English store. And the installer was straightforward, easy to use, well localized, so props there. However, the problems start almost immediately after that. You fire up the software, you're greeted with this. This is the RK61 keyboard that has been detected here. We have the RK65 keyboard, which has additional keys over here on the right hand side, which presumably means that we're going to have a hard time remapping those if we wanted to do that. But let's click the big picture of the keyboard here, which is not representative of our keyboard at all, and see what happens. So we click it, and our keyboard, the backlight kind of spazzes out for a moment there, but we do end up in some kind of vaguely functional looking interface. We've got the keyboard here, or rather a keyboard here. Once again, this is not actually our keyboard. This is the RK61, and you see that none of the keys on the right hand side there are mappable, nor are our dedicated arrow keys. That said, we do have most of the layout of our keyboard here, and it works pretty much the way you'd expect it. You click on a key, like the U key, then you can come down here and you can select anything from this vast array of options. If you wanted to rebind U to, I don't know, C, then you can do that. You see it is now C, which, all right, sure. If you want to reset a key, as far as I can tell, I guess you have to reset the whole board, or maybe, what does this do? Export configuration scheme, import, rename. You could delete the configuration, but I don't really want to delete the whole config. Like, what if I just want to switch one key? Ah, there we go. We right click and we get default function. So that resets it. There we are. But I also noticed something there. We right click and we see custom functions. What does that do? Oh, that just lets us, weird. That just lets us pick from this same stuff that we have down here, but they felt the need to put it down here in this weirdly like spread out form, but then also here. And it looks like there might be some additional functions here, including window shortcuts and things like that, which we don't have access to here. And it looks like we can have it launch an application if we wanted it to as well. Which begs the question, why have any of this here at all? Like, why not just have it so you click on here and you immediately get the drop-down menu? Yeah, this is characteristic of just a lot of this janky software. It's just design decisions that are very unintuitive and just don't make much sense. But anyway, so you have a couple ways to do that. And yeah, regrettably, we don't have access to any of our dedicated keys over here for rebinding them. And we also don't have access to any secondary function layers, which is a major bummer. That would add a lot of utility, but unfortunately, no such luck. But we do have a couple things here. We've also got a macro recorder here, which lets you do kind of what we were talking about earlier, which is available in hardware, but now it's available in software with a lot more configuration options. You can insert and reorder functions in your macro or keystrokes. You can add delay and that kind of stuff between them. So it's your regular old kind of macro editor, and it looks reasonably functional. Then we've got the light mode here, which because this is not an RGB board, we cannot change the color, but we can move through a bunch of different backlight modes here, which appear to be what we had available in hardware, but then there's some additional ones as well. Or maybe not. Oh yeah, it looks like there are a few others here. We can adjust brightness, so 15 steps. We guessed about 12, but there's 15. And speed, which you can do in hardware as well. Or you can turn off the backlight entirely, should you want to do that. And then all we're left with aside from that is just some basic settings. You can have it run on Windows Startup if you want or not. You can reset keyboard data, but also factory settings. I'm not quite sure why there's two or what the difference is. And you have a choice between Chinese, English, and more Chinese. Maybe it's like simplified versus traditional Chinese or something. That would be my guess. And that's it. I got a couple shortcuts up here to go to Royal Kludge's store. And I don't know what the home button does. Just brings us back here, I guess. Which doesn't seem very useful because that home button goes away as soon as well, I guess it goes to here. So what's the point of it here if it just brings you back to this? Oh, no, it doesn't launch a website. Okay. It brings you to the official website, which is evidently being updated. But their store is functional, so anyway. Okay, well, you know what? The software is there. It seems to mostly work. It is definitely on the janky side, which is pretty typical for this kind of software. It is not the worst I've seen, but it is far from the best. But anyway, it is there and available should you want to use it. Okay, that leaves us with the typing test. So if you've been looking forward to hearing that clickety-clack, listening to this keyboard in action, now's the time. Let's get on with the typing test. All right, well, the LEDs have been lit, the software has been tested, and the keys have been clacked. I'd say it's about time that I share with you the pros and the cons of the Royal Kludge RK68 mechanical keyboard. Over here on the pro side of things, the things that I liked about this little keyboard. The first is that it is, in fact, quite little. It's a 65% compact layout, which packs in a lot of functionality into a very small footprint. Some might say this is the perfect layout. Personally, I like to have a few extra keys. I think a 75% layout is maybe the sweet spot, but for those who don't care about the FRO, the 65% layout is a fantastic compromise between, a compact footprint and full functionality. Another fantastic aspect of this board is its wired and wireless functionality. Not only do we get Bluetooth wireless, but we get 5 different devices that this thing can remember and connect to, which is actually a couple more than you usually see, even on more expensive keyboards. So props to Royal Kludge for that. Perhaps the biggest surprise about this board, and maybe the biggest pro, is that it is hot swappable. I didn't actually realize this going into this review, and so I was quite pleasantly surprised to see this is the case. This basically means that you can swap out your switches freely. If you want to try out a new switch type, it's just as easy as pulling out the old ones, popping in new ones. No desoldering or soldering required. Or if one of your switches happens to die for some reason, you can easily swap in a new one. And so this actually really improves the utility, the flexibility, the longevity of the board. And just at a quick glance, it does appear that this board can accept a wide array of switch types. For a long time, you saw a lot of budget hot swappable boards that only accepted Outemu type switches, but we've got Gatoron switches in this board, and the additional pack-in switches that came with it are some kind of other brand of switch. And so the fact that this has wide hot swap compatibility at the $60 price point is just awesome. It really opens up a world of experimentation to budding or beginner mechanical keyboard enthusiasts. So big props to Royal Kludge for including the hot swappability. Another thing worth pointing out is that we've got double shot keycaps here. That's pretty par for the course when it comes to most mechanical keyboards these days, but it's still worth giving props for, because it does mean that they're going to be very durable. They're basically going to last forever. The legends, at least the primary legends, are never going to wear off. That said, I did find the keycaps to be quite thin, so if it were me, I would replace them with something a little bit nicer under the fingers, but nevertheless, the stock caps should be quite durable. And finally, I have to give Royal Kludge props for packing all this in at a very low price point. $60 US is quite competitive when you consider the feature set at play here. There's really not a whole lot else that competes at that price point with this array of features. You've got stuff that's a little more expensive, like the Keymove Snow Fox, which I've also reviewed on this channel, that also is a little bit nicer to use. It has the full RGB backlighting as well as the PBT keycaps, but you're going to be paying an additional $30 or so for those items. So at $60, this is a very compelling value option. Over here on the cons side of things, the stuff I didn't like that much about this keyboard, or maybe even disliked. There's just actually a handful of things, not that much. The first thing is that there's no RGB on this board, and I went into this review thinking that this model would have RGB backlighting, but no, it's just got a monochrome light blue backlight. Now, for some people, that's really not going to bother them. And for those that it does bother, I ought to point out that you can get a fully RGB equipped version for just a few dollars more. Unfortunately, that's not what I reviewed here today, so I am a little disappointed by the lack of pretty colored flashy lights. Also a little disappointed by the rattly stock stabilizers. I'm not surprised because that's really common for boards at this price point. There's no lubrication from the factory. They make an awful rattly racket. They don't feel that good to type on. With a little bit of attention, you could improve that stabilizer feel quite dramatically. But at stock anyway, it contributes to a less than stellar typing feel for this board. It feels overall pretty budget to type on. But, you know, again, that's commensurate with its price. And finally, the software is quite janky. You saw as we were using it, there were a lot of peculiarities, some localization issues. The layout was a bit nonsensical in some places. Once again, this is par for the course for these inexpensive budget keyboards coming out of China. So again, I'm not surprised, but one day I would love to see some software that really just looks polished and well thought out and isn't just super janky. So today is not that day, and the Royal Kludge RK68 is not that keyboard, alas. So what then is my final verdict on Royal Kludge's RK68? Were they able to nail it again and get that desirable balance of affordable yet feature-rich? Well, I'm happy to say that, yeah, they pretty much were able to do that this time. I think the RK68 is a great keyboard for people on a tight budget who are looking for a compact keyboard but aren't quite willing to give up the dedicated arrow keys. The model that I looked at comes with a monochrome blue backlight, which isn't going to be for everybody, but for just a few dollars extra, Royal Kludge will happily sell you an upgraded model that comes with a full RGB backlighting for that rainbow bling. But perhaps the greatest asset that this board has at its price point is its hot-swappable sockets, which allow you to easily experiment with a whole world of exciting and interesting mechanical keyboard switches. And, well, the board isn't going to be winning any awards for its typing feel, per se. Its stock double-shot keycaps and Gateron switches at least will ensure that it should have decent long-term durability. The software, unfortunately, is pretty awful, but again, that's pretty par for the course for keyboards in this price range. And of course, we have the added benefit of this being a wired and wireless mechanical keyboard, which adds a lot of utility and flexibility. Overall, I think the RK68 offers very strong value. And while it's not going to wow any mechanical keyboard enthusiasts, I think it would make a great starter mechanical keyboard for somebody who's just dipping their toes into the hobby for the first time. And that, my friends, brings us to the end of another relaxing review. Special thanks to Royal Kludge for sending over the RK68 that we took a look at here today. And if you're interested in picking up one for yourself, there is a link down in the video description which will allow you to do just that. And if you use the discount code, the ASMR Nerd, on their web store, you will get 10% off on your purchase, which on a keyboard that's already this cheap is just kind of like the cherry on top. It's not too bad at all. So if this is interesting to you, click on through, check it out. And of course, special thanks to each and every one of you for watching. I hope you found this informative, and I hope you found it relaxing. And I look very forward to having you back here next time for another episode of Relaxing Reviews. Bye for now, my friends.